Welcome back to the Patcast, folks. I'm Pat Monahan, your host on this podcast. It's Monday, and that means that we're back with another new edition. We've been bouncing around Europe for the past week, visiting some radio and TV stations and promoting our new album, Bulletproof Picasso. It's out this week, actually, and the official release date is tomorrow. Although, if you are a longtime Train fan, you may have noticed that we leaked it a little early, so go ahead and check that out. We're really proud of it, and we can't wait to come and play it live for everybody, wherever you might be. Yeah, so I'm psyched. It's really cool. 7th album. What's up? Today we're actually in New York City getting ready to play America's Got Talent. So if you are listening to this in a timely fashion, check us out on TV tonight. If you've been listening to this podcast lately, then you know that we've had some really interesting guests lately. John Fox graced us with his presence last week, taking a few minutes to talk to us in between his busy coaching schedule with the Denver Broncos. This week, we get back to music, and it's another really great conversation, one that was very enlightening in a lot of ways for me with this guy. We've known about him for a long time, but I've never really gotten a chance to sit down and hang with him. I've met him once or twice, but this chance to talk to him was really cool for all of us, for me especially. His name is Gabe Saporta, and he first gained popularity as a singer and bassist of a band called Midtown. Midtown made an impression on the pop punk scene, which, their fans are diehard fans. I mean, all the pop punk kids that I've had on this podcast get a lot of listens, and that just shows that they still have a loyal following, which is cool to see. Midtown made an impression on the pop punk scene, as I was saying, playing shows like Skate and Surf and Warped Tour. But after a few records, they had run their course, and Gabe set out to do something else. His plan was to embrace his love for pop and dance music and bring some of his punk background into the equation as well. And that, roughly, is how Cobra Starship was born. He assembled a new group of musicians in New York City, wrote a record, and went out on tour with those guys, bolstered by the popularity of a single on the Snakes on a Plane soundtrack. Get these snakes off the plane! If you don't know the movie, then you might know that quote from Samuel Jackson. And 4 records later, Cobra Starship is still making music. And getting ready to release their 5th record. They took sort of an unofficial hiatus for the last couple years, so Gabe is just recently diving back into songwriting, recording, and performing, and we talked a bit about that in this session. You can hear their current single now on iTunes, YouTube, and everywhere else you find music. It's a collaboration between Iconopop that takes them a little further into the world of dance music. It's super catchy and fun. It's a really cool song, and Cobra has always been great at all of that stuff. The conversation with Gabe was a bit surprising because for a guy who writes so much catchy and fun pop music, he's a very serious and thoughtful fella, and he has a unique perspective on life. We really got into it in this interview, and me and Jerry and Pergo were all pretty impressed. So I'll let you hear what he had to say for yourself. We'll just get right into it this week on the Patcast. It's Cobra Starship's Gabe Saporta.
What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking. What do you do? What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking at you. You got to get it while the getting is good. Laugh when you can, cry when you should. You got to give it till the giving is gone. Do what you can, then you move on. What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking. What do you do? What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking at you.
All right. We're in New York City today, and I have the great privilege and pleasure to introduce to everybody a guy named Gabe Saporta, who you come from an incredible background, but the bands that people would know you from would be Midtown, right?
Yeah.
And that was like your first like punk rock kind of band, right? Or did
Technically,
you
my
have stuff
first-
before that?
Yeah, my first technical band was actually called apropos titled humble beginnings.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And
So
was
that was
that
like a
here
real
in New
fun
York
time.
too?
That was in Jersey. I mean, I was born in South America, and then I grew up in Queens until I was 11.
Which is really crazy, man. We gotta talk about that.
Okay,
So
yeah.
you're from where? Uruguay?
As Homer Simpson would say, "You are gay." Yeah, I'm from that country. It's a small little country at the bottom of Argentina.
Yeah,
Brazil.
we've been there.
Oh, you guys have been there? You
Yeah,
played there?
once. Yeah, we were there one time.
That's awesome. Was it good?
We were on tour with Shakira, so it was great.
You know, the people
No
in
shit.
South America are tremendous.
Yeah.
Really lovely, but they're hardworking, and man, there's so much poverty. It's hard sometimes to watch. You know, it's a warm climate, so there's a lot of shanty living and stuff that's hard to watch.
You know, the weird thing about South America is that in a lot of places, some countries are exceptions. I think Chile's an exception, and Uruguay's a little bit of an exception, but there's really no middle class, you know? So you have people with a lot of money
That's what it seems like,
who
right?
live great, and then, like, all the people who are basically, like, even less than working class, they're, like, slave class because they have no opportunity for any kind of class mobility, which is scary when you look at that because that could happen in America, you know?
Did you find, do you know the background of your parents and why they migrated to the United States and how they did it?
I do know. I know the whole story. You know, my grandparents, some of them are great-grandparents, went from Europe to Uruguay. And Uruguay is basically full of unlike other South American countries that really have a mix of, you know, Europeans and indigenous people, Uruguay has really no indigenous people left. The indigenous people there were called the charruas, and they're basically gone. I've never even seen one. So I guess it's similar to what Australia is.
So
with the
everyone
Aboriginals,
there
yeah.
would have come from some place
From Europe.
else?
So they all look white, very white, like, you know.
Really?
Yeah. So it's very interesting. So, you know, the Latino culture is there, but there's not this really big mix that like there is in other countries where you see people who clearly look Latin American. In Uruguay, people, and it happens also in Buenos Aires and Argentina. You see people from Argentina that look like super good looking, like, you know, tall Italian people, which is what most of Argentina is.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't
Most
know.
of
I didn't
Buenos
realize
Aires,
that.
at least the south of Argentina. Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of Argentina too. I was rooting for them in the World Cup.
Yeah.
And so anyway, but your parents, they wanted to go to the United States. Is that because they wanted?
They wanted their son to have the chance to be a rock star. No, I'm just kidding.
Because how old were you when you moved?
I was 4. So my dad was a doctor in South America. My mom was a dentist. But South America has socialized, well, Uruguay has socialized medicine. So, you know, my dad just thought the system was bogus. It was under a military dictatorship at the time. And he's like, you know, there's no opportunity to even practice medicine. Like, my dad loves medicine. He
And
can practice
did they speak English fluently? And did
No,
you?
not at all. No one did.
Man, really?
I remember the first
So they
thing-
were willing to sacrifice all the education that they had to get to where they got to
Dude.
learn a new language, and everything's going to be upside down.
You know, I think that my dad's experience really gave me, you know, a lot of admiration for him and really gave me my work ethic. You're talking about a guy who was already a doctor in South America, was probably going to make a decent living. Obviously,
Yeah.
it wasn't great, but with socialized medicine,
He would have survived fine, you know.
He would have.
They need doctors no matter what
they
the-
weren't. They weren't in the poor class. They were in the upper middle class there. You know, like, but you know, not rich is like, you know, whatever. Anyway, he would have done fine, and he really went to a new country illegally. We lived in America illegally for 3 years before he had his visa. He couldn't go to school. It's like a catch-22. You can't enroll in school unless you have
So
documented
for
paperwork.
3 years, you're hiding out, basically, and what's he doing to make money?
He was literally going through these streets here in the 30s and 6th Avenue. They have all these like wholesale clothing garment district.
Yeah.
And he was basically going door to door, like dealing with these guys and selling scarves.
But who even gave him garments to sell?
You just know someone, you hear someone like, you know, like you get in like the community. Someone says, "Oh, I have a friend who's coming in. Can you give him a job doing something? You know, he's a doctor. Can you do something?"
Right.
And he did it. He did something to last. And then not only that, it's not like you just come from a third world country and they let you practice medicine. You know?
Right.
You have to go to medical school all over again.
But they didn't make him go to get an undergrad. He just had to go to medical school.
Medical
So
school
he had to
residency.
learn medical lingo in English.
Yep. In English, exactly.
He must be his brain capacity. He must have an enormous capacity to understand and retain information.
Yeah, you know, what he always said and what his mother told him was it doesn't translate well into English, but it takes, you know, 1 in the head and 2 in the butt. It means you have to spend more time sitting down and studying than being smart.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I like
So
that.
he really, I mean, he studied a lot. I mean, when I was younger, I remember I barely saw him when I was younger. You know, he was just working, going to school and studying, and that's it. And he would
Really?
like, sleep at the hospital because
That's
when you're doing a
incredible,
residency, it's
man.
crazy. It's crazy.
That's a guy who's committed. And so he ended up getting his MD license, and he practices medicine and still does?
MD, and then he had a specialization in ear, nose, and throat, He does. He practices medicine. And this is a guy, my dad, and what I really respect about him is that he didn't do it for himself, He doesn't give a shit about, like, nice cars. Like, he doesn't have a nice watch. He doesn't have a nice pair of glasses. Like, his glasses are broken. I try to buy him, like, a pair of glasses for his birthday, and he never wears them,
Right. Yeah.
So it's like he just did it all for his kids,
Sure.
That's the only reason he did it.
But it's also, to achieve something in life as a human being feels pretty good. So he got to at least have that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think he was pretty young when he did it. He was like, early 30s, late 20s when he moved here. So, I mean, I think even at that age, you're just figuring out, what you want, what you're doing.
Yeah. Like Pergo has his master's, for instance.
You doing
It's
what?
useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's useless.
Yeah.
Masters in
Doesn't
English
do
is
anything.
very, like-
I try to buy him cars and glasses, and he happily accepts it. He doesn't have any...
That's because he's not serving society,
Yeah. No,
when you
he's
spend
like,
your time
yes, I
serving
would
society,
like
you're
those
so much
glasses.
more fulfilled. But I mean, my dad is a guy. He went to school with Dr. Oz was in his class, So he went to Columbia. My dad's a super smart guy. He went to Columbia, and he has a PhD, not PhD. He has an MD in ear, nose, and throat, and he knows he's a specialization in plastic surgery. So
Wow.
he could have been a New York doctor doing plastic surgery from Columbia, making a ton of money. And he's like,
Where is he?
he's in New Jersey, serving the middle working class people in Elizabeth, New Jersey. You know?
Wow, man.
So he could have stayed in New York, and like he's like, I don't want to deal with people who are just want to do plastic surgery, interested in that. I don't want to deal with people like that. I want to take care of people who really need help. So he like.
And
what?
how did that affect you? How does that affect you as an adult? Like, what are you into?
It's weird. I have the balance of like my two parents. My mom is like very aesthetically oriented. She always took us to museums growing up. She loves art and beauty. My dad was very scientific. So I definitely have both those balances.
But she was a scientist too. She was a dentist.
She was a dentist, but she also was not as passionate as my dad was about medicine.
Somebody told me that dentists have the highest rate of suicide in the United States.
Yeah, it's true. Dentists and psychiatrists.
So was she like, I got to get the hell out of here?
I don't know.
If I see another tooth, I'm gonna.
What she does now that she has a really cool thing. She's doing it for her 10th year. She goes to the Amazon once a year. I think she's there right now actually, and she goes to remote villages that don't have access to any kind of medicine or anything, and she goes and teaches them how to have basic dental healthcare. So she teaches them how to do like dental floss out of like a tree bark fiber.
Wow.
Yeah. Cool stuff,
That is really cool.
Yeah.
And so you're affected by that in you kind of have to carry on some type of tradition to, as far as like what you want to teach your children when you have them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's very interesting. I went to like some like past life regression person, and they told me that I was like a healer in my past life. And she's like, it's so funny that you're born to two doctors to awaken in you your the memory that you actually have healing powers. But I mean, what heals more than music, right? If you're in a bad mood, if something's going on, like you can listen to a song and it can take you out of that. So there's a lot of like, and really music is about people. Medicine is about helping people, serving people, and so is music when you get down to it.
I agree. Hey, speaking of, this song is a Cobra Starship song, but man, I'd love to. Can we do like a verse and a chorus of it? Because
Sure.
I think
What song?
This is "You Make Me Feel."
Okay.
I just think it's the jam, man.
Sure. Let's do it.
I'll do some la la las just to help you out.
Are you gonna do the pre-chorus? The girl part? Can you do that? You can do those high notes. I feel like.
Wait, what's the? No.
Anyone but let me get up there.
No.
Who's gonna do that?
I'm gonna watch you and dance.
No, come on, bro. You gotta do the pre-chorus. You can do it.
La 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 la. La 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 la.
Girl, I've been all over the world looking for you. I'm known for taking what I think I deserve. You don't know what to do. And if you listen, you can hear me through the radio in that bright white noise. What I've been missing in my life, I've been dreaming of. You'll be that girl, you'll be that girl, you'll be. You want to let me get up there. I'm
The baddest baby in the atmosphere.
Tell me what you want so we can just get what you like. You make me feel that.
La la
That's the jam, dude.
We had zero rehearsal for that. That's pretty good. Is that how you guys normally do it? Just go?
You know,
I learned your stuff online. That's how we do it.
yeah.
Grip it and rip it. That's the way it's got to be, bro.
But that
Sounds
song,
great.
I remember hearing that song and being like, that's like gotta be like the song of the year because it's so memorable. That la 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 part is such a massive hook.
It's interesting.
What ended up happening with that song? How big did it go?
It only went to number 4. Well, only. I mean, number 4 was like double platinum. It was a big hit, but it was the number 1 research song of the year. So
Oh, wow, that's
means,
great.
That's like the research means like the burn, right? You know, this burn thing.
It's
right? You know,
crazy.
yeah.
Like, you know, if you don't have good research, you're dead.
Yeah, so it's like
There are songs that sell a massive amount of songs and the research comes back like iffy, so they dump the song.
Yeah.
And then there's other songs that the research goes great, doesn't sell anything, and they just keep playing it for 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. But you came from punk rock, and that's a pop song. So Pergo wanted me to ask you, why did you turn your back on punk rock?
It's so funny. Ian Mackay from Fugazi was asked the same question. Like, why'd you turn your back on hardcore? And he goes, I didn't turn my back on hardcore. Hardcore turned its back on me. But I don't think that way at all. I think for me, you know, I think the point of me being a musician, obviously part of it is to share with people, you know, and to give to people. But I think at the same time, it's for me to learn about myself. And I think that what happens, especially in the punk scene, and I saw it happen to people that were older than me, is you get stuck, you know? You get these guys who like want to do something, they have success or like have some like local fame or whatever, and then they can't move forward because they're scared to take risks or change what they were or disappoint their fans or disappoint people who expect
So
something from them.
it's a little staticky.
Yeah.
Do they stay in a similar place
It's
without
like the Matrix,
growing?
man. You know, you create something and then it just fucking eats you, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I've always like my tendency is like I hate being put in a fucking box. I hate it. I will fight with anything like to fight against it. Like for me, the most important thing about doing any of this is like to have freedom, right? And freedom to grow, freedom to change, freedom to like learn about myself, you know? And changing, taking risks is part of it. You know, the other part of it too is for me. You know, Jonathan always says this to me. He goes, you know, every band likes to think that they got fucked, but you really got fucked, you know? So I was.
Well, how does he feel that about you?
So Jonathan, my history with Jonathan, it's funny. Jonathan was like starting a management company, and he went to go talk to the president of MCA Records. I had just signed. I was on a label called Drive Thru, which is like a punk, quote unquote, punk label. Not really punk. It's fun, you know. It was like a pop punk label, ska label, but I was on Drive Thru and they did a deal with MCA and like we got option to MCA and we were really punk. We were just like, fuck this, fuck everything all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Like, everything was like beneath us, not cool enough. Like, and like we hated losing control, and that's what happens when you go to a major label. You got to work on a team.
Were you all kids living at your parents' house?
Fuck yeah. I know, we were in college at
Well,
the
the reason
time,
I
you know?
ask is because to say fuck this, fuck that, you have to have means.
No, we had no means, you know, but we didn't give a shit. We lived in college together in like a shitty house, and we had shows in our basements. When we left college to do the band, we all moved back in with our parents because like we're just touring the whole time. I like literally was living in my
why would
parents'
you
basement.
pay rent?
I wouldn't call that means living in my dad's basement. Like my dad literally said to me, I remember because I borrowed $3,000 from him to buy a van to go on our first tour, and it's a piece of shit van. I can curse on this thing, right?
Yeah, you've already cursed 1,100 times.
Now you're gonna ask.
It was a piece of shit van, and I remember, and it made this huge sputtering noise. And I remember coming home from our first tour, and like it was so loud that like my dad could hear us coming home from around the corner.
Yeah,
and he like came out the
I love
house
it.
like excited to see us.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's
you know,
funny.
I haven't seen my son in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
like,
cool.
And then I step out the van, and I remember his face just dropping because I was fucking emaciated. We weren't eating on tour. You know,
Oh,
so we had
really?
money. Yeah. So, but it was fucking awesome. Like you're 18 years old. You're like
Yeah.
you're having the fucking time of your life. You know, you don't have time to eat. You know.
Did you love those guys that you toured in that van with? Did you have fun?
We had an amazing time.
Oh,
yeah.
that's cool.
And we actually just did a reunion, and I hadn't seen some of those guys in like 8 years.
And this is Midtown. You just did a Midtown
Midtown
reunion.
reunion, yeah. And I hadn't seen those guys in 8 years, and it was great to reconnect. Like, you know, when you spend your early childhood with people, like, even if your life goes in two totally different paths, you still have this connection, you know?
Yeah, right.
So we spent a lot of time.
where did the fucked part come in? What
so,
happened?
Okay, so back to the drive through MCA. So we're on MCA, and we're like, you know, we were like contrarian kids, you know? I mean, I had this book, Letter to a Young Contrarian by fucking, what's that guy's name? He just died from cancer last year. He wrote a lot for Vanity Fair. I can't remember his name right now. You can say it later, and then it'll spike it into the thing.
Okay, thanks.
He's a British guy, British writer. It was just like I was contrarian, you know, and I hate being put in a box. So Jonathan went to go talk to the head of MCA and was like, "Oh yeah, I'm looking for bands. I want to start a management company." He's like, "What about this band Midtown?" You know, and he's like, and the head of MCA is like, "No, they're too much trouble. We're gonna drop them." He's like, "This is the home of fucking the Doors and Jim Morrison. You're gonna tell me you're gonna drop a band because they like have a voice? That's crazy, you know?" And that's when he reached out to us and started managing us. And then, you know, and at the time we got dropped. MCA merged with Universal at the time, and then we like left. We were able to get out of our deal. We did a record independently with Butch Walker. We had this big bidding war, and we signed to Columbia.
Right.
You know, 2 months after we signed to Columbia fucking gets merged with BMG. So it's like really,
right.
I was signed to 2 labels right at the time before merger. You know what happens with a merger? It's like no one's interested in developing new bands. They're trying to sell more Beyonce records to stay alive. You know, so you're gonna know.
Was it weird to be on Drive-Thru? I've heard some pretty crazy stories about people signing
Dude,
to that
we were
label.
one of the first bands on that label, you know. So, you know, I found Newfound Glory for Drive-Thru, you know, and I had a lot of animosity because I felt like, you know, I saw them making a lot of money from their bands. You know, I saw them living like really lavishly off their bands and making a deal for their label, and they weren't like supportive of their bands. You know, we were like busting our ass and like really like literally starving on the road, and they were just not being supportive. You know.
Did you ever have to walk on Richard Rains's back?
I personally did not, but I definitely know people who did, 100%.
Can you
He wouldn't
explain
pull-
what that's about?
I mean, I don't really know. You know, I mean, there's rumors. I'm not gonna like continue rumors. If you want to find that, just look that up online. But you know, I don't necessarily like think. I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily as bad as it is. It's not appropriate, but you know, it's like he was jacking off while people were walking on his back.
It was a troubled label.
It was a troubled label. Yeah. I
Well,
guess, but-
so the book is called Letters to a Young Contrarian. His name is Christopher Hitchens.
Christopher Hitchens. Yeah.
Got
Christopher
it.
Hitchens,
So I just
yeah.
wanted to make sure we got
That's
that.
it, that's it.
Because we don't have the gear or the knowledge of how to place something like that in the podcast later. We just don't know how to edit or anything.
We don't have the staff for that.
Yeah, we don't have the staff. So so here you are. You go from like a pop punk band who's starving. You're managed by Jonathan during this time?
Yeah, we were
Crush?
Jonathan's, like basically a second band. They had
Okay.
American Hi-Fi and us, I think, and Butch Walker. You know.
Cool, right. Yeah, that's right. He and Butch have been friends forever. And so this falls apart, or at least you transition into Cobra Starship. How does that transition start?
Well, what happened is, you know, and this is what happens when you have to really balance as an artist. It's always this war inside of you of like following your artistic desires and growing as an artist versus also, you know, doing things for other people, you know, because
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who are great artists and stay in their fucking basement and don't go anywhere. I know a lot of people that are geniuses and have $6 to their name.
Yeah.
You know? Not that it's about the money, but it's about, okay, you're making something, you're making music. The point of music is to share it. And there's a very selfish tendency with artists to just do things that they're going to think is cool and their friends are going to think is cool. So we did this record that we did for Columbia with Midtown. It's called Forget What You Know. And it's a record that was super cool. It was very advanced. None of our old fans got it. We made no new fans. So we just kind of disappeared. But we made the record and we said, we're just going to make a record with zero compromises, you know, just follow our artistic whims. And we did it. And we're like, we're going to make a record that 20 years from now we're going to love. 10 years later, now when we just do this reunion, we still loved it. And, you know, the great thing is that it really developed a cult following. So there's something to be said about just doing what you love and letting it sit there and letting it grow. At the same time, for me, there's something else about, hey, you know, I have these abilities. And I saw, because what happened then, Midtown was kind of coming down and Fall Out Boy was coming up. And the last tour Midtown did, we were opening for Fall Out Boy. And it was right, like, when Fall Out Boy was still playing, like skate parks and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But it was like 1,000 kids coming to a skate park.
Yeah.
And they were young, and it reminded me of what Midtown was at the beginning, where we were just young and having fun and wanting to share with the kids and like not having to be about like, oh, we have to make this artistic record or whatever. You know, they were
Right.
on their first record. We had just finished our third. So it really...
You made a lot of records. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
you've
I've
made
made a lot of
6 or
records.
7 albums.
Yeah, I made 3 with Midtown, and I made 5 with Cobras. Did I make 5 with Cobras or 4?
Is this your 4th coming?
This is going to be my 5th coming, yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah, it's a
8
lot of
records.
albums.
That's a
fucking
lot.
songs, man. I can't remember all these songs.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so you see this whole thing kind of coming to an end, and you're like, man, you need to personally make a shift.
Well, I just saw also that, you know, the band got jaded. Everyone with each other. What happens is, man, people just become used to something. They lose appreciation, and they lose...
Did you?
Yeah, of course. But I recognized it, you know?
Right.
So, you know...
Do you think you're a pretty self-aware fella?
I think I'm at the war for awareness. You know, I don't think being self-aware is something that you just like one day you turn on the light switch, you're like, hey, I'm aware.
So you're
consciousness, all
so
right. you know?
you're always at war with
Every day I wake up and
Yeah.
I say, please show me where my fucking enemy is so I can destroy it. And I don't mean outside, I mean within myself. You know?
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, people like it's a fucking war. Like it's a mental war. Like
Yep.
it's a war against your like the same thing going to the gym. Going to the gym is a fucking war. You're fighting against your body to get better.
Yeah.
In the same way, your mind is a muscle that needs to be flexed in the same way. By the way, there was an old Discord compilation called "Flex Your Head," just if you want to keep talking about punk rock. Pergo punk rock is Drive Through Records.
Okay. So you're done. You're done. You just recognize that, hey, we've gotten to the point where we're not going to be able to turn this into a positive anymore. How do you shift into Cobra Starship?
It wasn't even like I could tell the other guys were just over it. You know, one of the guys already had started a new band. And I'm like, you know what, man, I really feel like I was the driving force of the band. I don't need to work my ass off for 3 other people who don't appreciate it necessarily. Although Rob Hitt did appreciate, you know, Rob Hitt was kind of in a tough spot. The drummers are always in tough spots. But
The drummer of Midtown.
exactly, yeah. So, you know, I was just like, okay, let's let it go. And I really just get to the point I remember like we were done. We all met together in New York. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just felt like I had a light bulb go off. I saw Fall Out Boy. I hung with them. I'm like, I need to reconnect to this because I had this one point and it went
So
away.
you became friends with Pete, Patrick, and the other fellas, and
Exactly.
and you hung around it because it was positive.
Positive energy. People
Yeah.
being excited, not being judgmental, you know.
And you
Bands
were
at the
cool
beginning.
being a part of it and not being jealous of it. You were able to do that, or is that hard to do for anybody? Because I'm terribly jealous of people that are winning in a category that I continue to lose in.
You know, I feel like I was jealous at the beginning, and that's what really made us jaded. So, you know, I found Newfound Glory for Drive Through, and Newfound Glory got bigger than us right away. I saw all these bands. I took Dashboard Confessional on his first tour ever. Like, literally, I'm like, get in a van, just follow us. And I had him open up 10 minutes. He became huge. So I had that jealousy before. And that's what made us jaded. That's what made us like be like, well, we're going to make an artistic record. But, you know, there's 2 kinds of jealousy. There's like a thing called the jealousy of scribes, right? Which is like the jealousy that scribes get for each other when they see something, when they write something amazing, like, wow, I want to write something amazing. I want to do something great. So it inspired me. So at that point, I got to a point where I said, okay, this jealousy, the way it's manifesting now is making me jaded. And these people are excited and they don't know what's happening. You know, they're young. And like, you know, this is where I was 3 years ago. I can reconnect to that and not have this competition. And like, I can be inspired by being jealous as opposed to being negative. So that's where I went. And I said, okay, you know, I had a friend that said something really interesting to me. She goes, I see when you guys play, all the like heads of the labels and stuff, they come out to see you guys. Like they believe in you, you know, like they think that you can be something, like, but you're always sabotaging yourself. Like I see other bands that play and like their heads of labels don't come out to see them. Like people want to see where you're going. You know, you just need to stop sabotaging yourself. And I said, wow, that makes sense. So I said, okay, well.
And you were able to look at that in a different way? When she made you recognize that, you were like, okay, I can point at those places.
Yeah, I mean, I got it. It made sense to me. It made sense. Okay, well, like if people believe in me, and you know, I was thinking about going back to school. I wasn't that old at this time. That was like 22.
And you had gone to
23. Rutgers, yeah.
Rutgers, right? And you studied philosophy.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, man.
did you graduate with a degree or?
No, I left after 3 semesters. You know.
Okay.
So you got to think about my dad. Okay, so my dad moves to America. Going back to my dad, moves to America so his kids have an opportunity. Okay, but we were like, I went to a private Jewish school because we were so poor. They let like me and 2 Russian kids went to like this private Jewish school, and for free, I'm saying. And so I was always the outcast. I didn't fit in. At first, I was like the immigrant who couldn't speak English, and I went to the school in Queens. Then I went to the same school in New Jersey, where it's upper middle class, and I was like the poor kid from Queens at the school in Jersey with my fucking gold chain, my Guido gold chain, and my mullet, my they called me Party Patrol pants in school because I would wear these. I don't know if you remember in the '90s these Z Cavariccis.
Oh,
like,
I remember.
Yeah. So
I
I wear
got 'em in my
yeah,
closet.
like MC Hammer pants. They call me Party Patrol pants. Like, I literally came to school with like a gold chain, a mullet, and Party Patrol pants, and that was my fucking name. Yeah.
And were your parents like, what have we done?
Well, it was. They didn't know what the fuck was going on, but you know, I just didn't fit in. So I was always getting into trouble. So when you go to a small school like that and you just don't fit in, like I never got good grades. But my parents knew I was smart. So all of a sudden, so I never got good grades. I went to Rutgers, and all of a sudden, you know, when you go to a class with 400 people, no one gives a fuck what you look like. You know, you do well on the tests, you do well. So all of a sudden, I have a 4.0, going from being a C student to having a 4.0 in college.
that's cool, man.
My dad's super psyched. I get like a Dean's Award for Excellence. Like my dad comes, he's like, loving life for joy, and then 3 semesters left, I'm like, yo, Dad, peace. I'm gonna go in this van and eat Taco Bell for.
Yeah,
for a
I
couple
proved
years.
that I could do it. Now I'm out.
Yeah.
And
he
so
was
you're
super bummed.
contemplating now after Midtown, like, man, I should maybe go back to school.
Yeah.
What would you have studied? Like, why philosophy of all things?
You know, I really am a person who likes to get to the core of something, right? It's like I always ask why. So I would feel like there's another reason why, and like when you really get to the core, you understand like the energy behind the consciousness, seed level. You know,
You realize that the final why, the answer is because. You realize that, right? In the end, it's all going to come down to because.
I personally don't think that, but
You think that everything has a specific reason, and
Yeah.
that also, do things happen for a reason?
yeah, I think everything is connected. I think
Everything.
that a part of our job in this world is to connect the dots.
You think so? I find I used to think this way a lot. The reason I'm questioning your thought isn't because I think you're wrong or that I'm right or that I used to be wrong or any of that, because we're never gonna be able to figure it out. But some things are so terrible. They're so terrible that I have a tough time thinking that there's a connected dot between that terrible thing that happened and a specific reason or a lesson that like a group of people are supposed to learn, or that thing happened because something positive will come of it.
Well, I think people say that with no disrespect. I think people say that when they see terrible things happening to other people. When you experience your own terrible things, eventually you look back and you say, wow, I learned from that. There was something that I need to learn that happened to me. So
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know
or
anyone.
you and I haven't dealt with the terrible thing that I'm specifically thinking about as
for
terrible
yourself?
as it could be. Yeah. If like you and I probably have dealt with some tough stuff. Probably you more
No,
than me.
that's my point. When you see outside yourself, when you see things that aren't your things, and you see other people's lives,
Yeah.
and you feel empathy, let's say, for them, and you say, that's really terrible. Why does that happen
How
to
could
them?
that happen?
That other person may not necessarily be asking that of themselves. So you might be saying that as a world thing of like existential, oh, how could this happen? But that person may say, I understand why this is happening to me, you know? So it's very easy for us to say that's so terrible and judge. That's really a judgment. But when you look at yourself, I mean, I think we can really only be experts in judging for ourselves. So I've had some really terrible things happen to me, but I'm so grateful that they all happened because I became stronger and I learned. And even when it was some of them happened because it was a positive thing. It was like something needed to be revealed that was positive, that was hiding in this terrible thing. Other things happened to punish me. Like I was really acting fucked up and I needed to be smacked in the face to realize I got to change. So even those things, I'm grateful for it, you know?
Okay, just devil's advocate.
Sure,
Because
keep
I'm
going.
with you and I totally agree. A couple years ago, there was a penis laying on the road.
Jesus.
Happened to be a guy's penis that his wife cut off. Her name was Lorena Bobbitt.
Right.
Do you think that guy thinks at all any day of the week or any minute of any day, you know what? I'm glad she cut my dick off. Like, that sounds like
That's a great question. We should really ask him that. But
we should go.
You know,
ask
if
him.
if he changed his life because
Yeah.
of that whole thing happening, and I have to venture. First of all, they reattached his dick, just so everyone knows. So he has a functioning penis.
Wait, what's
now.
that?
They reattached.
They
his
reattached
dick.
it, so it's functioning. But you know, I think that guy might look back after time. He might look back and say, "Hey, you know what? I was really acting away or living a life that I shouldn't have lived, and that happened. That was terrible. But I really changed my life because of that, and I never would have changed my life if it wasn't for
He
that."
did actually change his life. I'm pretty sure he did some porn after that. He turned it into a
shit.
career opportunity.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're gonna find out. We're gonna insert once we figure out.
Yeah,
once we
yeah.
get a staff large enough, we're gonna insert that part into this. But I'm with you, and I think that the only way to really deal with life is actually to have the attitude that you have, which is, hey man, if I look at these, I've always thought that the real gift you can give yourself is during those terrible times. Don't try to understand it, but let it in and think of it as a gift. Because I know people who've gotten leukemia and 10 years later they call it a gift. You know, and it's like, hey man, when you're in it, I don't imagine you would say, hey, this is a gift. Thank you for giving me this sickness, you know, but years later if you can get through it. I think it's the get through it part. If
Yeah.
you never get through it, it's hard to go, hey, I'm grateful that hit me as hard as it did because of all the lessons I've learned and the good people that have come from it, because I'm aware of that. But man, sometimes I just wonder if we've felt the blow hard enough yet. And that's when you really question, hey man, there is no fucking answer for this pain. I don't know why this is happening.
Well, that's why I study philosophy, right? Because then you ask, what is pain, right? And for me, pain is the gift wrap that all presence from the universe comes in, you know? So if like, you know, imagine aliens come to our planet and they say, you know, we give them presents and we wrap it and they don't understand gift wrapping and they just throw it out. They say, what the fuck is this garbage, you know? But they say, no, there's presents here. You don't understand. Look, it's garbage, right? So that's how sometimes we treat presents from the universe. We see them wrapped in this pain, and instead of going through it, like you're saying, and accepting and saying, hey, I need to unwrap this to reveal a blessing or something positive behind it, we throw it away or we try to run from it.
Wow, you might be the smartest person I've ever talked to. I mean, that's fucking amazing what you just said. That really, really is a beautiful way of looking at life.
Yeah.
I know that I read on Wikipedia that, you know, you actually have done a spirit journey, which is, that's some serious stuff, right?
Yeah.
Vision quest.
Yeah, right, but it's the same thing to me. Like a spirit journey or a vision quest is, you know, it's a big life-altering thing. Did you go somewhere and disappear for a few days, and did Native Americans take you on that journey?
Well, I'm going to get real with you right now. So when I first started Cobra Starship, I was 25, 26, I think. And I came up with this idea of like, oh, this vision came to the future with the Cobra. And like, I didn't know anything about Vision Quest. And I said I came up with this Vision Quest. Next thing you know, lo and behold, 3 years later, I'm on a fucking Vision Quest in Brazil, you know? And
In Brazil.
in Brazil, doing what's called ayahuasca, and they say that ayahuasca is actually the spirit.
Do you happen to speak Portuguese?
No, I mean, I can. When you speak Spanish, if someone speaks to me in Portuguese, I can understand.
You
and
can get
speak
some
back.
of it. Okay.
Yeah, but I was in Brazil because the shaman that I work with is Peruvian, had a center in Brazil. So I went there the first time, and I went to like, he had a house like in the border of the jungle there. And I stayed in that house by myself for like 10 days, barely ate. He would come visit me once every 2 days and make me some like food and just drink ayahuasca. And like, that's when
What is ayahuasca?
What is ayahuasca?
Peyote?
No.
Is it a mind-altering something?
Yeah, so.
Because before that, you were incredibly straight and didn't mess with anything, right?
No, I did. I just never did hippie drugs. So
Okay.
I thought pot was stupid, you know, like I would do like a lot of like pills, you know?
Oh, okay.
And so the pills really got me into trouble because, you know, I was always like, I'm very controlled.
Yeah.
I would take like, I was like measuring it. I was like a little pharmacist. I had like a little pharmacist kid. I had like my Xanax to go to sleep, you know, like my Adderall in the morning, my Percocet before the show.
That was kind of a generational thing too, right? Prescription drugs became street drugs in your generation, I think.
Yeah, I think they are now to this day. I think
Yeah.
people
But
roll like
it
that
used
now.
to be street drugs, and then it became prescription drugs can be real fun. Let's check this out. And
Well,
so
because that's fashionable, you know. You get it from your cool doctor, and then like they have it at parties, and like you would hear about these socialites like getting pulled over the airport with like fucking tons of Adderall, and like you're like, oh, it's my
Yeah.
eat it, you know.
Right.
So and it's like, you know, it doesn't feel dirty. You know what's in it. It's not like getting cocaine on the street in the 80s. That you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's cut with fucking like gasoline. You know, it's like this is you know you take an Adderall and it's like whatever.
It's just like, it's almost like your generation is just like a really bunch of smart kids, but still we're all humans. So you reach a certain age where you're like, I want to start fucking with my brain. I want to see how far this stuff gets. I want to see if I can stop feeling shitty, or I wonder if I can, you know, I felt really good before when Sarah said she liked me. I wonder what that feeling would be like for like 5 hours. I might want to do some blow, you know, like, but for your generation, you were smarter, but not different. You know, you just got a cleaner, better way to get high.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what happened, and it felt like, you know, because you take it in a controlled way, it slowly starts to, you know, I'm always like, again, my whole thing is I never want to be in a box. I always want to be free, so I always felt like I was in control.
And was this a group that you would do this with, or was this all
just
you?
myself, taking myself. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, a couple times like people like party with it, but it was just like my function. Like I take my vitamins and my prescription medication. You know? Like, literally, that was my thing. I had like my box of vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin D, you know, like
Yeah.
CoQ10. fucking Adderall, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, my thyroid medicine and Adderall, you know? It's like, it's
Were you
great.
prescribed Adderall?
Yeah.
So you were taking it for ADD or something else, right?
No, I was
Oh, okay.
prescribed it from a doctor who wanted to, like, I'm like, hey, I'm
Party
like,
doctor.
I know how to get
I
you
literally
high.
told him, I'm like, listen, I'm buying this on the street, you know, and I have an addiction to it.
Right.
Either I keep on the street or you give me a prescription and wean me off of it, quote
Do
unquote.
you have that doctor's number?
Yeah, can we get his name and number before you leave?
So you know, those things, the problem with those things is when you don't have them, they cause, and this is the problem with all drugs. I mean, listen, you know, if there was a drug there would be no come down from, I think everyone should take it, you know? But the problem with the drug isn't the drug, it's the come down. It's the fact that when you don't have it, you create this empty space that you need to fill. It's just energy, you know? You just want more energy. People take drugs because they want more energy.
Yeah.
So when I did ayahuasca, ayahuasca is used a lot to cure people off of drug addictions because the hallucinogenic part of it, it's interesting. It's not really a trip, but what it does is it anthropomorphizes. What's that word? Personifies energies, feelings. You know, I remember like one time when I was first doing it, I was just bawling the whole time. You know, I just lost my girl of 5 years. I was just crying for like 4 hours straight. And the shaman comes up to me and goes, "What's wrong?" And goes, "Oh, you know, I'm just so sad." And he's like, "Well, you know, that's okay. Just talk to your sadness. Ask
Wow.
it what its name is. Ask it where it comes from. And if you're not fucking on ayahuasca, you're gonna be like, talk to my sadness. What are you talking
Wow.
about?" You know, so you're able to personify energy. So if you have an addiction, you can personify it and you see it as something separate from yourself. You see pain or suffering or anything as something separate from you. You can interact with it and can be like, you know what? I really don't want you here. And it leaves.
Huh.
Yeah.
Man. And then so how did it all end in Brazil? How long were you there and what was the rest of the journey like?
I was there for about 10 days, and then afterwards I went straight to Uruguay to visit my family, and it was rough. You know, I was really like dealing with like I had just had the good girl success, but you know, typical cliche answer: you get success, you lose your girl. You know, and so I lost a girl that was like behind me the whole time that I was with before I even started the band, and I realized that I was really the one to blame for all my problems. I realized that I had judgment issues.
And she did the right thing when you look back.
She did. I think she also had her issues to deal with, you know. So I think that, you know, I think she did the right thing by breaking up with me. I think then she held on to her anger for a long time, which is okay. That's fine. It's, you know, that's her process. But that's also what ayahuasca teaches you. It teaches you that everyone has their own process,
Right.
you know. And like when I've done so many ceremonies now, I've been doing it for 8 years now.
You have.
So I try to do it like once a month, and you know, so I see people in their journeys, and I see it like.
How long? Once a month for how long?
It's 4 hours. It's like, you know, so it's not like, you know, I don't know what kind of drugs like I hear, so, like LSD, you take it's like 12 hours. I've never taken LSD. Like I said, I never liked hippie drugs, you know, so I was very opposed to doing ayahuasca, or doing anything hippie. But my friend was like, "Bro, you just try it." I'm like, "Okay, I'll try anything at this point."
Well, you know, you mentioned "Good Girls Gone Bad." This is the song that my daughter Amelia found Cobra Starship. I love your description of jealousy and how there's two types of jealousy. My jealousy towards you is really the bad one. There was no honor in it. I wanted you dead. No, I'm kidding. That's not true at all. I remember just being jealous because I was at a low point during my career, and I would play demos and stuff for my kids, and they would just be like, "Yeah, Dad, that's really cool," and then they would go talk to themselves like, "I think Dad's gonna fucking fold, and he should just be a priest or something." But then when they would get excited about music, it made me feel, you know, a little bit empty because I trust my kids. I trust kids in general to tell the truth more than adults. So you might have record company guys go like, "Dude, this rocks, bro. It's good."
Yeah.
And then you go like, "Well, you're 50, and that's not going to help me because you don't buy records and you haven't for 35 years." But my daughter, who is 10, she gets it, and I was jealous of that feeling that she had for your music and not mine. But it was really good for me, and I'm glad it happened.
So that's a good kind of jealousy.
Of course. No. I was kidding that it was bad, but I just remember this was my introduction to Cobra Starship. This was long before Jonathan was in my life or anything else. I just remember this song was like, wow, this is new. It was fresh. It was what young people wanted to hear, and like you were breaking ground, I think. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, when I started Cobra Starship, I really had a specific vision, which was to bring electronic music into this kind of post-punk rock world, you know.
Because you were also post-punk.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, like the post-emo, whatever you would call that world. So I think we were the first bands to do that, which is cool. You know, we approach songwriting a whole different way than I think bands had before. We would just start in the studio with a beat and go from there.
But the line, I make them good girls go bad,
Yeah,
you a bad motherfucker.
bad motherfucker.
I mean,
It's hard to
I
reconcile
don't know if
persona,
it
yeah.
has anything to do with the real you, if you really have made good girls go bad, but I know that I never have, and I can't. I don't have that ability. So, congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thanks. That was before I had my spiritual awakening, you know. So now I make those bad girls be good.
All right. Hey, man, let's just play a little bit of it because it's so cool.
Yeah.
With chords?
Give him a.
I make them good girls go bad. I make them good girls go. I make them good girls go bad. I make them good girls go. Good girls go bad. Girls go bad. I know you're tired. Yeah, your daddy's little girl. Just take a bite. Let me shake up your world. Just one night couldn't be so wrong. I'm gonna make you lose control. She was so shy, like oh wild. I make them good girls go bad. I make them good girls go bad. You were hanging in the corner with your 5 best friends. You had that I was trouble, but you couldn't resist. I make them good girls go bad. I make them good girls go. Good girls go.
That's the jam, dude. Jealous.
played that
I'm
song in
still
a minute.
jealous.
So let me ask you a question. When Hey Soul Sister, when you recorded that, your kids get excited about that?
You know, at that point, I think I stopped playing demos for my kids. I learned the lesson because it hurts.
Right.
You know, like when you play something for someone and you have expectations, that's a terrible judgment. You know, it's like really what you should be is open. And if you don't get the thing that you were hoping for, then reconsider your song. Like if that's what you want is young people to help you, then you have to be open to letting them help you. And I stopped being open to that. But I really needed guidance. And this is when Jonathan stepped in and replaced the people that I had expectations for. You know, because I needed someone to listen to. And he's, you know, actually his first question to me was like, hey, man, you've been in this business a long time. Do you think you could listen to me? And I said, man, I've been waiting for somebody to listen to for my whole career. Because I always knew that I didn't have the right guy, you know, but I didn't know who the right guy was or girl, anyone who would manage me into a better place. You, I think, are one of the rare few lucky people that you, out of the gate, you found a great person to help you guide your life.
He was actually my second manager. Yeah, so I had the wrong person first, and exactly what you're saying.
How old were you when you started? Like 9?
I was my first tour I did when I was 16.
Wow, man,
Yeah,
you're an ambitious guy. You're probably
That's
going to end all this shit and go get your degree in philosophy and then go to med school, aren't you?
No, you know, philosophy is great, but at the end of the day, you know, I use philosophy every day of my life. You know, so it's a good foundation. I'm glad I have those analytical skills, but
Right.
you know, if you're a philosopher, you end up sitting. You know, I'm still actually close with my philosophy, the head of the philosophy department, who was my mentor for my major, and he actually has done ayahuasca with me, which is really interesting. Yeah, and you know, he's amazing, and he like writes a lot of stuff that people who write policy are affected by. But you know, he doesn't get to interact with people on a large level.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you have shit to do, and we have to go do this recording. But before I let you go, I wanted to ask you just a
No, I can't wait for these questions.
Oh,
just
Jesus.
a few last minute questions. Is there a great
Fuck you, Pergo.
is there a great tour find that you've found on the road that you can tell people that listen to the podcast about? A place somewhere or a thing somewhere that you wouldn't have found if you didn't tour?
Yes, actually, and it got me into a lot of trouble. In Portland, Oregon, there's a fucking cool Army Navy store. I can't remember the name of it, but it has like fucking ninja stars and like switchblades
Oh,
and like the
shit.
kind of shit that
And
you
they
love.
sell
if you're,
those?
They sell them and it's legal, and like the kind of shit that you love if you're like a kid, you know.
Oh,
like
yeah, that's-
so I went there and I'm like, you know, you're like girls play with dolls and guys play with like fake knives and shit. And you're like, oh, one day I hope. I remember like I used to have like the comb switchblade and I took it out and tried to make a real switchblade out of when I was little, you know, like
Yeah, like you carve off the
comb part. Yeah,
right.
yeah. So you know, so it's like. So I went to the store and I bought. I'm like, oh, I'm in fucking heaven, you know. I'm like living out my youth fantasies. I bought all this cool shit just to have it, like as a collector thing. And then we tried to cross the border to Canada. And they searched our bus. They found all these fucking
Oh,
weapons. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? So I still have. I couldn't get my fucking global entry because I have. Things already.
Seriously? And there was
Canada
nobody that
sucks
you
for
could
that.
talk to about it?
I'm gonna try and talk to someone. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, Pergo's got an in with the global entry people.
you?
He loves Canada, too. He's really into Canadian girls.
I
Anyway,
don't think that counts as an in.
yeah, it probably doesn't count. But so are you a fan of anything currently? Are you binge watching a TV show, or, you know, you look like you work out pretty hard? Are you a big donut fan?
You know, I have a huge fucking sweet tooth. What am I fans of right now? Okay, there's I love Quest bars. I love Vega bars. That's what the two new food finds I found. Like plant-based protein. Quest is kind of iffy. I don't know. You talk about working out. So I don't know.
No binge
I
watching
like-
TV shows.
Yeah, I do binge watch. But only one show at a time. So the last show that I got into, the last show I was watching was Game of Thrones. I think that's the only game
Yeah.
that I would like wait to see it.
Yeah, cool.
House of Cards. I love Orange is the New Black. Binge watching and Cosmos. Have you seen that?
It's
I just
incredible.
started.
No.
I just watched the first
What
episode
number?
2 minutes ago.
It's all good, all the
Incredible,
way up
right?
to the end.
Yeah,
yeah. That's great.
That guy was on. What's his name? Neil
Yeah,
deGrasse.
Degrassi.
Jerry binge watches a few things, but he always binge watches RedTube.
No. You
So-
don't need to binge watch that.
By the way, that's also like in ayahuasca, you get like all these huge epiphanies, right? So just like these sayings come to you. You're like, oh, that tells you it's like, you know, one of the things I got was you don't put dirt in your mouth, so why are you gonna put garbage in front of your eyes? You know, so I stopped watching porn after I did ayahuasca.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I'm telling you, it like makes you super free from all that kind
You
of
didn't
shit.
just start watching better porn.
Totally stop watching porn.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
like
it's really
you are
crazy.
living a really committed life to being better.
Yeah, because if you're not better, you get worse. It's you can't just do nothing, right? You know, it's like if there's no like, oh, whatever, I'm just gonna do nothing. If you don't do nothing,
Do you
you're
drink or
really
do
upset.
drugs?
Yeah, fuck yeah, I'll still drink. Yeah, absolutely.
So those are the moments where you be like, "Hey man, fuck it, I'm gonna have fun." Like,
Listen, I have a friend who just died. Unfortunately, he passed away. He was in AA, you know, and he was 8 years sober, and he went back to it, you know. And I tried to get him to come do ayahuasca, and he's like the whole time. And actually, the guy who started AA said that hallucinogenics have the power to really free people from the disease, quote unquote. And the problem that I have with AA is that it tells people they have a disease, so they always have this ailment. So they're not really changing it; they're just suppressing something.
Yeah.
And that's why you have these people have these relapses. They go fucked up, and that's what happened to my friend. And
plus you can get addicted to the AA program too. So if you feel like it fails you, then you can, you know, fight against it.
right, exactly. So the thing is, like, for me, it's like I always feel like I always have to. The drugs aren't the problem. The alcohol's not the problem. It's what's your consciousness, right?
Of course.
And if you're fighting the war against your negative consciousness,
Yeah.
you're gonna be able to drink and do drugs in the way you want. You know, I personally don't really do drugs because it's like
It's not
I
where
don't
you're
like
at.
how I feel afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't need that huge up and down. So I can get that up by myself, like connecting with it within me. You know.
And just for any hippies out there, Gabe is not insulting you if you like drugs, hippie drugs. Hippie, I think, is a good term for you, right? When you say you don't
Listen,
like hippie
I fucking
drugs.
go to the jungle and sit with a shaman and like fucking like, you know, like, so it's like,
Yeah, 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 I
I'm full
love
hippied
that.
out now, you know.
That's awesome. So my last few questions are, you know, what is next for you, and what's next for a Cobra Starship? Because I know that you have a new single. It's called "Never Been in Love."
Yeah, never been in love.
So we're gonna play that at the end of the podcast.
Sick.
But what's the plan from here on out?
You know, for me, I really had to find a new inspiration. I felt like "You Make Me Feel" was a great song, but it seemed like a logical step from Good Girls. Like we had a plan. We said, okay, we're gonna do this kind of sound, and we really pioneered it, and I think and developed it and had a certain thing. But then it gets saturated. It's done. So again, you know, for me now, I started listening to a lot of early '90s UK stuff like Jesus Jones, EMF, which is also like when bands were experimenting with breakbeats in a different way than now. But yeah, so I feel like Never Been in Love really takes influence from that. It has a Fatboy Slim flip in it, and George Michael is a huge influence too.
Do you are you having an easier time or a more difficult time writing records and creating a new thing for yourself?
I think for the past 3 years, I had a harder time because, I went through this big drama that I lost my girlfriend. I had my Saturn return, for all you hippies out there who know what that is. And I had success. I didn't know how to handle it. And then I got married, So I was like, okay, well, I'm fixing my life. I was better, but I lost, like, my attitude, my edge. So I had to, like, come back from that and, like, really find the central lane, which is where I'm at now. So I feel like now I feel very creative. Like, I spend my whole day just making up songs about my dogs all day, So it's like that's how I know I'm creative because like shit's always coming out.
I just want to let you know that if you ever struggle with success again, give me your money, and then you'll be free of any potential problems because money will really get you. So my last question is, how do people find you? Social media. Do you have your own Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, or is it a Cobra Starship thing? How do people contact you?
There's everything. At Cobra Starship is everywhere for Facebook and whatever. I run my own. I go on the Cobra Starship sometimes, but I run my own. But it's all Gabriel Saporta, not Gabe. So it's JBRIL. All my stuff: Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook. What else?
Snapchat. You're into the Snapchat.
I just figured it out.
So how many
really
nudies are out there in
I haven't
space
gotten
of you?
any. I haven't gotten any nudies yet.
No, do you give a bunch out, though?
Oh, yeah, all
since
of
they
them, all of them.
disappear? Yeah, hey, everybody, check this out.
No, Snapchat is like, so then that way I don't have to, expose or subject all the people on my Instagram to my selfies. I put them all on Snapchat.
Got it. So they disappear. Unless they save them. Well, hey, man, thanks so much for being on the Patcast.
Yeah, man, thanks for the amazing questions.
You really are, you're an inspiring young man.
Thank you.
And I hope that your marriage is really wonderful and you have all the things that you were hoping for. And I hope this new record goes great. And I'll be, I'm not jealous of you anymore because
you're huge.
No, because I'm not jealous of you anymore because I've learned how to be a fan of music and really admire it instead of wish that I was there instead. So anyway, I'm so happy for you.
You really should have been a priest, man. I really appreciate that blessing.
And I would also love to smoke some peyote with you after this podcast.
Yeah, we could do it.
Great.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks a lot, Gabe.
Thank you.
Here's my global entry card. Although I'm not as tall. Thanks, man.
That was Gabe Saporta, and as I mentioned, we're going to play a brand new Cobra Starship single. Here it is, Never Been in Love, featuring Iconopop.
Tell me if I'm crazy, but when you come around, it's kind of amazing. My head goes through the clouds above the rain, and I'm never coming down now that you save me, baby. That stupid party talked outside, walked to your place, stayed up till 5. You'd never think a random night could change your life. I know now. I've never been in love before. I know now. I've never been in love before you. I know now. I've never been in love before. I know now. I've never been in love before you. Say it.
That was Cobra Starship with Never Been in Love. And that wraps up this week's Patcast. Thanks for listening. You can, as always, keep up with us at Patcast Podcast on your social media and train for all your touring, or all of our touring and band-related stuff. And we will see you next Monday right here on the Patcast. Oh, scuba-dum-doo-doo-doo, scoot-doo-boop-doop-da-ba-ba-doo-ba-chow, sigh.